Conoci Dexter fans, and welcome to my freaking review of Season 8, Episode 7, Dress Code. So let us dive into this insanity. Spoiler alert as we go forward, because I will, as always, bear all in this review and walk you through all the vivid details, at least everything that my brain can grasp. Sundays are officially the busiest day of my life of entertainment, and I know that's such it's like, if that's the most of my problems, then I've got it pretty good, right? You know, because I'm watching Breaking Bad now at 6 p.m. and then reviewing at 7, and then I watch Dexter at 9 p.m. and I review at 10, and then around 11 or so I start drafting my Dexter daily review. And by the by, I do have my very first review of Breaking Bad up, of the mid-season premiere, so there is a link below for you guys to check that out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, I apologize if I'm just not super coherent tonight, because I am just emotionally, I am frazzled beyond belief. Like, I can't even begin to express to you the state that my inner being is in. My mental health is, and could use a bit of upkeep, right? And I've also been averaging about like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night, which is kind of absurd. And so I just apologize in advance if I'm kind of here, there, and everywhere, and I'll do my best, as always. So this episode, I need to say this, if I had to place it in terms of favorite episodes and all that fun jazz, this would probably be my least favorite episode, and I'm going to explain why in a way that is kind and respectful to those of you who loved the episode, who found it to be really fun, exciting, and full of all that good kind of tension. You know, this video, this vlog, the comment section below, this is a place of respect. We share ideas, we bash heads in a sense that is not like warfare style. We're just kind of, you know, getting to know where each other's at, why we see things the way we do. So I'm just saying, I know there's a lot of very strong feelings revolving around the person of Hannah McKay. So I'm trying to tread lightly, wink wink, for those of you who watch Breaking Bad tonight. Yeah, so I'm going to try and tread lightly on these subjects, but at the same time be very honest about the way that I felt about how things transpired. So the reason why I struggle with this episode is just that, like, there was not even the slightest, like, little fraction of hope for me in terms of, like, the things that I long to see in the season right now. And I think that this episode is just kind of a necessary step in a series of, I don't know. It's hard to explain, you know, like, I get the sense that we're going to move past this place and the nature of things is going to change, so I'm not hopeless in that respect. It's just that this episode was really difficult for me to get through, and I literally, like, had this face most of the time. Like, I could feel my face just, like, locked in, and I was like, I'm gonna be stuck looking like this freaking sourpuss for the rest of my life, and that really sucks. Thank you, Dexter. So let me walk you through the various parts here. Quinn is still having freaking issues. You know, James is kind of like, well, you know, we should totally kind of think about moving in a sort of slightly pretty serious way, and there's no pressure, but at the same, you know, like, she's kind of doing that whole thing that ladies often do to their men, you know, and even vice versa. It's just kind of a relational thing. And Quinn is in this place of, you know, he really wants to advance. He wants to chase what is now his dream. And part of that, to him, is getting Zach Hamilton in the clink and proving him guilty, and that has proven a very fruitless endeavor, as we have seen. So, and it's really tough goings between him and Batista right now. I just feel really bad about the relationship, and just it's like, all that Quinn can do really right now is just gonna be like, oh yeah, by the way, me and your sister are moving in together. Just kind of like, you know, rubbing it in. They're kind of having some tension going on here, and that's, I feel bad for Quinn. I want him to have like more scenes with Deborah and Dexter because that to me is the most interesting dynamic, and I don't want him to get sucked into the vortex of pointlessness in which he's been in seasons past. So I want to continue to feel like I can be invested in him, you know? And then we have Masuka and his daughter. I totally called the titty bar ordeal. I totally called that. You know, because as soon as he's like, oh, where do you work? She did this kind of like, oh, you don't know where I work, huh? But then it's like at the same time, she didn't even like really seem to care when he showed up. So I think that she's kind of, you know, she's had sort of a lacking paternal presence. Well, of course, because, you know, her mom went to the sperm bank, so I don't think she even has, yeah, there's a certain imbalance in her upbringing. I think that kind of shows in her just sort of nonchalance about, you know, her father showing up at her workplace. And I just love the way that the camera angle, you know, like he had like the menu kind of between them and he's just like, oh God, like I need to reconsider my life and all of my past choices. And so that was kind of funny, but I feel really bad for Vince and this daughter of his, you know, I hope that their relationship continues to progress in a meaningful direction. You know, he's trying to get her in a place of better employment, something that is more, you know, more fruitful in terms of her future, like what she wants to do, and this like isn't her first choice. And you know, so it's just all so awkward, and I just felt so bad for Vince. I'm like, ah, oh, buddy. I knew he was walking into that landmine. I absolutely knew. So poor guy, you know, just gotta hope that that goes in a good direction. I was relieved whenever Vogel came onto the scene. I was absolutely relieved. I love Charlotte Rampling's performance, and just every time she opens her mouth, I'm just like in awe. I'm like locked in. I'm picking up what you're putting down. I just love to watch her, you know. It's not to say that I trust Vogel myself, but rather it is to say that Charlotte Rampling is a badass and we should all bow down to her acting prowess. So I just, you know, the scenes with her are so enjoyable because she's so analytical and she just brings really cool narrative elements, and that, you know, I wanted so much more of that, more of her and Dexter and Deborah, you know, kind of the way that things have been this, you know, past season. Now that Hannah McKay's in the picture, everything is kind of lopsided in a way, and there was a lot of attention given to that whole situation and the reemergence of Dexter's feelings and her feelings and feelings, and, you know, so like what made this episode the most difficult for me was just kind of the whole sort of soap opera vibe that kind of came from Dexter and Hannah's confrontations. You know, it's like he goes totally weak at the knees woozy over this chick. Like, you know, it all starts off with at the very, very beginning of the episode when he wakes up in the middle of nowhere. Well, not exactly nowhere, you know, he's close enough to a street to be able to, you know, have Deb swoop into the rescue. But, you know, at first it's like, okay, I need to make sure that me and Deborah are safe. And then it's more about, like, is Hannah safe? Is she okay? Like, is the weather too hot for her? Can I get her a glass of champagne? I mean, it's just like, all of a sudden, it was just like, just cotton candy, fluff, rainbow, unicorn, like, I don't know, maybe that was just me, but I was just kind of like, what the heck is going on? I just felt absolutely seasick over the whole affair, and just the way, like, I think that I struggled, you know, I try to give Hannah a fair chance. I want to be sympathetic towards her and, you know, to not view everything in black and white. You know, even the characters I dislike, I want to find something in them that makes them compelling and really encourages me, you know, as to why, like, it's important that they be in this. But, like, the whole situation with Hannah's husband, you know, the guy, he knows where she's been, all that, you know, Mr. Big Time Casino owner, and he's got the connections and the power, and he's super controlling, and he was just kind of an awkward figure to me. Like, he seemed to be a little bit overplayed, you know? But, I mean, I guess I was kind of anticipating that just from the little tidbits that I could see in the previews. I figured he was going to kind of act that way and sort of puff out his chest feathers and, you know, hobble around and just kind of strut his stuff. which he very clearly did, and what he pulled on Dexter, you know, like beating him up in broad daylight, these guys, and then he goes back and he's, you know, freaking strangling Hannah, and that whole, like, it just felt strange that they had to have so dramatic a scene to, like, make us feel sympathetic towards her. It just seemed so overplayed to me. I don't know. Was I the only one who felt that way? I mean, that's just kind of the way that it struck me, and, you know, every interaction that they had was just so laced with all the ush and the gush, and, you know, especially the scene where we find Hannah as she's at her old nursery and Dexter just kind of pops up. Another issue I had was just a lot of, like, implausibilities and people just kind of showing up random places. Random, that is 2 syllables precisely. Yeah, like, all of a sudden Dexter is, like, freaking in the nursery as soon as she's there, and just kind of everyone's, like, popping here, there, and everywhere. I like the thrill of the hunt and getting to see, you know, how Dexter does what he does. Like, this show has made me so analytical in the kinds of things that I look for. And, yeah, I just enjoy the whole process of what Dexter does, and getting to see that, you know, it's fun to see him use his cunning, and this episode really played down his cunning and played up the whole emotional factor, and he's kind of, you know, sort of like a little 6th grade boy and in love with, well, a freaking killer. She's a problem, I should think. But, you know, it's just tough to see Dexter in that place, because I really loved the cold, you know, emotionless Dexter that we got to know in the first place, which sounds strange because, you know, I'm so invested in the Dexter and Deborah relationship, which has been so rich in emotions this season, but it plays out and feels so much different to me. It just, the development of it all feels so much more organic, whereas I still struggle to see Hannah as more of a contrived force. I think that the low point of the episode for me was that scene where they were in the nursery together. She was doing this whole, like, well, like, I wanted to poison you to see, like, if you were like this, because I kind of wanted you to do this, but now I don't, and you were in, it just felt like all this vomiting of the heart, and I guess I was already kind of emotionally worn from my experiences with Breaking Bad before. This is gonna be really tough last season, but yeah, so I mean, it just all felt so strange to me. I could just, my body was expelling it. It was just like, can we please have more, like, I want to know what's going on with the brain surgeon. I want to see him, you know, in training with Zach. And the whole storyline with Zach, you know, I think was interesting, and, you know, the way in which Vogel is trying to provide oversight. She's trying to provide oversight by getting Dexter to provide oversight to Zach. And, you know, because Dexter is clearly, he is all freaking over the universe with Hannah's return and trying to figure that out, and he's gone when Zach needs him for counsel. And so, you know, I think that's going to be interesting. I think that Zach's character brings an interesting element, and I'm not as shut down to that as I was initially. I mean, there are a lot of people who were upset because it felt kind of like a rehashing of season 3, like with Miguel Prado. But I think it's fundamentally different, you know, and yeah, like, I think that we're really going to get to the meat of the story, that particular story, in the next episode. So I'm just sort of holding my horses on that one and waiting to see what exactly transpires. And yeah, I'm really glad that we got to see a little bit more of Harry. He's pretty much, you know, voicing my frustrations, like, at every corner. You know, he did the same thing last season, like, as Dexter got this ridiculous, out-of-the-blue fixation on Hannah, and he's just like, Dex, for real, what are you doing? You know, it's like when Dexter's looking into her and blah, 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 he's like, why is it that, like, your foremost concern is whether or not she's safe? Like, what do you owe her exactly? And I mean, you know, it's that whole, it's the love and just kind of the residual, you know, the mysteries and the craziness out there, and just the unspokens, and, you know, I guess I guess that there is a sense that things are not fully resolved, and so Dexter is still feeling that pull to her and that process of wondering what could still be, even though I think it's pretty clear, you know, and I think he knows deep down that he has chosen Deborah, but at this point in time, he's got his rose-colored glasses on. And so I love Harry just kind of popping around the corner being like, Dex, are you for real though? Because I was just like, yes, finally, like somebody knows where I am coming from. I love you, Harry Morgan. You were doing justice for me, because he's trying to remind Dexter, like, okay, you need to prioritize. You need to figure out, you know, what is she here for? Like, is it something that impacts you and Deborah, or are you letting this situation, you know, are you using this situation, or are you trying to find a way out of it, you know? And so I like that Harry was kind of brought back in that sense. And, you know, it's interesting to notice how the less Dexter is communicating with Vogel, you know, it seems like that provides a little bit more of an outlet for his visions of Harry to come back in. I mean, that's just kind of my theory. I've been sort of trying to figure out, you know, how the two forces behind Dexter, how they kind of correlate, and, you know, why one shows up or is, you know, prominent to him in some area, and you know, that's just the kind of stuff that I think about. So anyways, getting back to the whole Hannah situation from Deborah's perspective, I feel so freaking bad for her. Like, you know, the scene where she's talking to Dexter about how, you know, there's somebody for everybody, and he's just kind of like, well, like, he's all rich and stuff, like, she never would go for that, and just kind of like, like, just fussing. He's just straight up fussing. And Deborah, you know, she calls it based on what it is. Like, he is clearly still in love. And I think that there is definitely some intense jealousy on her part, you know, and she's like, I know better than anyone what it's like to fall in love with the wrong person. That was a fierce burn. I mean, and that just comes from such a bitter, sardonic place, and we see a lot of that in Deborah this episode, which just really breaks my heart. You know, we see her move from a place of warmth and acceptance that she's finally starting to experience towards Dexter, and, you know, there's some reciprocation there, to, you know, all of a sudden everything is thrown off, and as soon as Hannah's name so much as arises, you know, like, Dexter's like, where? Like, just like a little puppy dog with his tail going, brrr, and he's just gonna like take off into the solar system and just fly away. And that's pretty much how I felt. And then of course, you know, Harrison kind of chimes in the whole like, Hannah, which is just kind of sad. You know, I wanted to see more of Deborah, like, getting to be that aunt figure to Harrison, and of course, you know, it's as if Harrison more recognizes a maternal figure in Hannah, which is really strange. I mean, Deborah was gone for a long time, you know, and I think that Harrison had even asked, like, early on in the season where she'd been, so I guess it makes, like, sense that Deborah isn't as much of a go-to figure, but still, it's like, are you kidding me? That just blows. And then, of course, Deborah gets wrangled into the whole discussion with Cassie about, you know, how she's, like, attracted to this unavailable man, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And poor Deb, you know, she's having to wade through the very hectic waters of, you know, what remains of her feelings for Dexter, and she's, you know, like, he is a mystery you don't want to solve, because she is exposed to his truth, exposed to her own truth, you know, the fact that she did feel what she felt for him, and I think that she still continues to feel that, but fights against it with her every conscious breath, because that only brings more pain for her, and she's trying to find some place of stasis for them, and to fight against those forces that would, you know, send everything spiraling off into chaos all over again. She's trying to get back on top and find herself and be comfortable, and, well, not so much comfortable as just secure and stable in love, you know, and, so it just devastated me. And then, you know, that all kind of spills over in the situation with Elway and how she's just so violently rejecting him. I think that comes from a place of anger about her inability to get closer to Dexter. It's like they've had all of this healing, and then all of a sudden there's a complete and total wrench just thrown in the whole design, and the whole tapestry is about to, you know, become undone, and she feels that weight, and she seems to want to reject any intimate human connection, because the one that means the most to her all of a sudden is kind of, you know, it's starting to dissipate and to face resistance again. And so, and I felt so bad for Elway, and, you know, I do enjoy their dynamic. It was just unfortunate that there was like more chemistry between Deborah and Elway in this episode than there was between her and Dexter. I mean, like, she was mostly just kind of following him, you know, she tracked him to the bay, and after the whole, like, you know, Hannah kills her husband, and then the tender moments, and then they walk up to the bayfront, and more tender moments, and I was wondering what Deborah was gonna do, but, you know, I think for her it's just kind of trying to gauge where things are at, and if she needs to intervene to save Dexter from himself. And of course he's like, you know, she's getting ready to leave town again and try and refigure out everything, you know, try and pick up after herself after, you know, her desperation binge, like, you let me down, so I just went to this random guy and everything sucks and I'm gonna try again. You know, it's that desperate struggle for Argentina that she just can't escape. And I think that's something else that makes it really hard for, you know, me to like her in, is just that she is so obsessed with this idealism. And it's interesting that they're whole talking about that, like, can killers really be together? Because Hannah's kind of like, I hate this whole situation and everything, and it's like, I just wonder where things are gonna go. The previews are like all these like cutesy little Hannah scenes, so I'm very confused and conflicted in my anticipations, you know, like, I don't know what to think. I really don't, and I feel like they're hiding something major from us, you know, like we're just kind of dabbling in the surface right now, and they're just kind of keeping us there on the shallow end of the pool, but the floor is just gonna drop out underneath us, and we're gonna be awash in the waves. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for, because, yeah, basically this episode just felt, it felt choppy and uncomfortable, and I was just in this state of, like, internal constipation of the soul, trying to, like, you know, wait for some fresh breath of air, and the only place where I really found that in was with Vogel, strangely, and she had just the briefest, shortest scenes. I wanted the camera to just sit and regard her and take her in and just let me, you know, bask in her beauty and awesomeness as a performer and actress. I mean, I just love her, and I want to see Deborah okay. You know, it's gonna get a little bit crazy as Deborah starts to take things into her own hands. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the previews, and, you know, the other sneak peeks are gonna be coming out soon, so you guys can also talk to me on Twitter as things come up, and I'll reply to all of your stuff whenever I can. My Facebook page and YouTube inboxes are like chock to the max, and I haven't gotten to read messages for so long, but I just want to thank you guys so incredibly much for supporting me and listening to and reading my stuff, and just being my beautiful friends. You all mean so much to me. So yeah, I'm struggling with the whole kind of soap opera-ness of it all, the, like, over intensification. Is that a word? I feel like I over-intensify my use of language. I mean, just the way that the Dexter and Hannah scenes were vaingloriously milked, and I don't think that they really needed to be. But yeah, the way that Hannah has been brought into the scene, they really like to push her. They really like to push her towards us, and I don't like that. You know, it's like, I want to come to you, not you to me. Like, back it up there, girlfriend. I'm not so sure about this. And just certain implausibilities that, you know, it was kind of like, there were some shortcuts taken, like, you know, how Deborah shows up to pick up Dexter after he's knocked out and missing, and et cetera, and they're just like, Hannah. You know, for me, I was like, why would that be the first thing they would think of? But I mean, then again, I've never really been in that kind of situation with another individual who might come back to haunt me in that sense. So, I mean, But still, you know, I don't know. I mean, maybe just watching Breaking Bad, I'm just getting so much more critical of all this stuff, but we'll see. So thank you guys so much for watching. You're wonderful and amazing and fabulous as ever. Let's talk about all of this, you know, where are things gonna lead? What is the deal with Hannah, with Zach? You know, is this a sustainable relationship? Is Dexter capable of being able to mentor him in that way? I mean, I think the answer is a big fat freaking no, especially if Hannah lingers in the picture, because I don't know that he's gonna be able to get his freaking priorities straight, because he's just got such a hard-on for the bombshell blonde from La La Land. I mean, I feel, for those of you who like Hannah, I will definitely talk to you about the value of her character, and I'm willing to look at that. But this is me I'm just voicing my opinions. I'm just I'm whining a little bit, you know. So I hope that you'll forgive me for that, and I'll be back by next week with more on Dexter, and it's gonna be real fun. So take care, you guys, and I will be back before you know it.